Hi guys, welcome to the first episode of this new channel, Mike United. My name's Mike, surname not actually United, I will be up front. I'm not averse to changing my name, but we'll see how the channel does first. Maybe if I hit 1 million subscribers, then I'll go get it changed by default, but for now, it's just an internet name, Mike United. I don't want to get too bogged down by introductions, why I'm here, why I'm doing this. Basically just that I'm a United fan, like a lot of you guys will be watching this. And I have a voice, I have opinions, and while I watch a lot of the popular United channels on YouTube, sometimes I feel like those opinions or what I'm thinking, where I think the club could go, maybe those things aren't really said. And maybe there are others out there that have similar opinions or completely opposing opinions, and would like a discussion about it, which is what I'm here for. Maybe that's one thing that I have as a smaller channel. Maybe I'll be able to have more kind of interaction with comments and discussions. Nothing against any of those big channels, I can only dream of being half as successful as they have been. But basically that's it. I've been meaning to do it for a while, years in fact. I've wanted to start a channel every year, every off season. I've kind of said, right, this year I'll do it this year. And it's just never happened for one reason or another, mostly myself. But I always have these opinions that end up rambling on at work, with friends, in the pub. And people have said to me, maybe you should start a channel, maybe you should start a discussion about it. And I've always played it off like I didn't want to, even though I did. So I just thought I'd finally take the plunge. It's a perfect time. Pre-season started, new manager, new players, new system. It seems like as good a time as any to start a channel. And that's it for the introductions. I want to jump straight in, and the main point of this video is 4 possible transfers that I think the club could do with, that maybe could happen. And that is on top of the transfers we know about. Malacia has already come in. De Jong is hopefully done by Friday, reports are to be believed today. Martinez has apparently said he wants a transfer away, and that's very close. And Eriksen is apparently done, it's just pending medicals and his holiday. So in the next week, those 3 players should be in. So those 4, Malacia included, plus a reserve goalkeeper I can see coming in, which I imagine will be a free agent. There's talks of Romero, there's talks of the guy from Lazio. I'm not even going to pretend I can pronounce his name, but it looks like he's going to Brentford now. I do see a 3rd goalkeeper coming in. Whether he'll take the place of number 2 while Henderson is out on loan, and then De Gea and Henderson will have a look at next year, or whether he'll come in as number 3 and Heaton will be number 2, is yet to be seen. But anyway, on top of those 4 transfers, 5 with the goalkeeper, I believe there's 4 other positions where we could strengthen, and I actually have 4 players in mind that are all hard-working players, Ten Hag type players that are ready to come in and play. They're not young and full of potential. They are players that are either in their prime or not far away and can come in and do a job from day one. Some of these players depends on who goes. Some of these players won't come in unless certain players leave. But 4 players, 4 positions, and each of the players, I believe, for around about 20 to 30 million pounds. Each of these players could be done, maybe even cheaper, a couple of them. I'm going to jump straight in with the 4 positions, which is right back, obviously depending on what happens there. Defensive midfield, which myself and a lot of United fans have cried out for years, since the days of Carrick, who maybe wasn't essentially a defensive midfielder, but he did kind of play that position just in front of the back 4, always ready to take the ball, play a range of passes, was very good with his interceptions. His tackling wasn't bad, but he wasn't a kind of a Makelele Kante type player. I actually believe that De Jong will be a Carrick type player. He'll probably carry the ball a little bit better. His tackling maybe isn't as refined as Carrick or other DMs out there, but I believe he'll play that position, and then the Ten Hag system will make up for De Jong's lack of tackling, harrying, screening, by having the defence quite high up. Full backs maybe quite tight if they're not played in a wing back type role. You've all seen how Ajax play. You've all seen how he sets up. While he does have Alvarez as a DM, he does set the team up so that the DM doesn't have to do all the work, kind of how Kante was at Chelsea in his earlier days, or Matic even, or Basuma at Brighton. At Spurs, I'm sure Basuma will do a similar job. He's actually one of the players that I was crying out for at DM. Basuma, I think he'll do really well. Personal issues aside, I think he's a top player, and he'll do really well for Spurs. But he's obviously off the market. So the player that I am thinking of for DM, I'll mention in just a minute. So there's right back, defensive midfield, right wing, and striker. Again, striker is dependent on what happens with a certain best player there's ever been. And right wing, I'm not too sure. It's not Antony, which everyone seems to be crying out for. I think if we're going to do the Martinez deal with Ajax, I think an agreement will be put in place that we're not going to go for Antony. We're not going to try and unsettle him. Maybe we'll have first option on him next year. And also the reports of Brian Brobbey. I know Ten Hag likes him. There's reports of Man United. How true they are, I don't know. But I believe we will agree that we won't go for him and Ajax will have a free run. So, again, the striker is not Brobbey or Broby. It is a different striker that I think for 20-30 million we can get. So I'm going to go into defensive midfield first. And the player that I think we could go for is Sangar from PSV. He's a well-known player, especially to Ten Hag. He's brought in players. He brought in Malacia from Feyenoord. He knows the Dutch league. He knows the Eredivisie. He knows this player. This player got man of the match in the cup final against Ajax when they lost last year. And I think he could be available for around 20 million. Ten Hag, I'm sure, would love to have him. He could be a player that plays next to De Jong, and he could win the ball, especially when the opposition team have their main strength is in their midfield, attacking midfield or centre midfield. He could be the player that wins the ball. Kind of an upgrade on Fred, really. Fred will run for days and fight for every ball, but his tackling is not the best. He's not great in front of the defence under pressure. He could be a Fred kind of player that can play defensive midfield. And once he gets the ball, pass it to De Jong, pass it to Eriksen, pass it to Bruno. So that is the defensive midfielder I think we should or could possibly go for, and not for a bad price. Next on my list is right back. And it was a toss-up between two players. I actually have my first choice players are all the cheaper options that I think will fit best. And then my second choice for every position, I'll go through those two, are more expensive players and maybe a little bit more of a wild card. Could maybe do better, but also could maybe stand a chance of not doing so well, and obviously the pressure of a higher price tag. Right back, it was a very tight decision between Max Aarons of Norwich, who have just been relegated, and I think we could get for, again, 20-25 million. He's quite a high potential player, although I do think he could come straight in. I think he kind of has the attributes we need as a right back. He's a mix of Dalot and Wan-Bissaka. He's good in the tackle, he's strong, he's quick, but also going forward, he kind of has what Dalot has. He can cross, he can beat a man, his positioning is very good, both in a defensive sense and an attacking sense. He's always an option for whoever is playing right wing or right centre midfield for Norwich. So I do believe Max Aarons would be a good option. The other option, the backup option, was Dumfries, who there has been some loose reports to for United. A Dutch player at Inter Milan might be out of favour. He's a player we could go for. How well Ten Hag knows him or how well he thinks he could fit the system is obviously down to Ten Hag. And I'm not going to pretend I've sat and watched hundreds and hundreds of Inter Milan matches, because I haven't. I watch most matches in European competitions and a little bit of Serie A, a little bit of La Liga. I wouldn't say I know enough to say he's a great player we should go for, or he's tat. I think from what I know of him, he could be a good option. He could work in Ten Hag's system. So that's defensive midfield and right back. Next is right wing, and I'm going to put an option forward that a lot of people might not agree with, that a lot of people might think is below us, but I want you to think back of Antonio Valencia when he came in from Wigan. Okay, now a lot of people thought, what is Sir Alex doing bringing this player in? I'm sure Wigan had been relegated when we signed him. Look at the career he went on to have with United. There are other players that have come from the bottom of the Premiership or relegated teams and done really well at other clubs. There is another club that shall not be named that got a Scottish fullback, and he's come in and he's done okay, I suppose. Not many trophies, but they think he's the best fullback in the world, barring one of their own from the youth academy. But the player I'm thinking of for right wing that does have Premiership experience, that has played against the toughest defences in the Premiership and done well. He has a shot, he's strong, he's quick, he's very good on the ball. He's Maxwell Cornet from Burnley. When he went to Burnley, I couldn't believe that they had signed him. As an avid Football Manager player a few years back, Cornet was always a wonder kid, was always going to do well. I used to quite like watching the French league. Lyon was a team I used to like watching quite a lot. I used to work for a company that actually sponsored them, so Lyon was kind of all over my work, and we'd see a lot of them. And I think he's a really, really good player. I think that he's got to leave Burnley. He's too good for the Championship. And for 20-25 million, there's no reason United couldn't go in for him. And he could be a great right wing option. And he wouldn't be coming in as this superstar right wing signing. He's not going to be our new number 7, or he's going to set the world on fire, or like Anthony. If Anthony came in, there's so much expectation on his shoulders for the prices that's been quoted, 70-80 million. We could sign Cornet kind of under the radar, and he could rotate with Ahmad or Palestri, whichever stays, or Sancho if he plays right wing. Cornet could be kind of an under the radar signing that could do really well for us for years and years to come. Another French player, I know it's not as easy as that, but I think could he come in and help Martial, who I'm hoping could have a bit of a renaissance under Ten Hag. Obviously, again, depending on what happens with Ronaldo, which will be discussed, Martial could be our starting striker next season. Which segues quite nicely into the striker that I would like to see us go for, that I think could do well. Another French striker, and he's actually homegrown. A lot of people don't realise that he came through at Fulham before he went to Celtic, and then again Lyon. Moussa Dembele, who did have a hard time at Atletico Madrid. A lot of people that I talk to will use that as a stick to beat him with, but he wasn't the type of player to lead the line at Atletico. I've always split it as you have forwards and you have strikers, and he's a forward. He kind of might come in off the wing, or he can play on the wing, definitely. But Moussa Dembele is a player that I think we could go for. I think he's got a year left on his contract. Again, 20-30 million. If it's the homegrown quota, he is hard-working. He knows where the goal is. He's a great finisher. He's stronger than he looks. He's still quick. I think he's 26 years old, 27. And I believe he could be a great option. That's 4 players. We could go out to sign all 4 of those, even if they cost the upper end 30 million. That's 120 million. And I know we're signing De Jong, Martinez, who together, I believe De Jong is being quoted at 50-something million pounds. I'm talking in, not euros. 50 million pounds up front. Martinez, 40 million pounds up front. So that's 90 million. Altogether, that's 210 million if we were to sign those 6 players, as well as Malacia, which has been kind of paid for by the Pereira exit. Now, we're not going to spend 210 million. My thoughts are that we're only going to sign maybe 2 of those players. I can see Ten Hag wanting to play with De Jong as the defensive midfielder, so Sangar is most likely out. The right back, there's been no reports of Dalot or Wan-Bissaka leaving. We will only sign a right back if one of those two are leaving. Even then, we could see Wan-Bissaka or Dalot leaving for 15, 20 million, and Ten Hag might want to play Williams there. He might want to play Ethan Laird there and keep one of them as backup or rotation. So we will see. I think the two most likely signings will be right wing, which my option is Cornet, and possibly striker, which my option is Dembele. But even if we were to go out to sign those 4 players, and that's a £210 million outlay, the next point I wanted to move on to was outgoings. Now, the players that I have written in front of me that I think we could see leave are as follows. Eric Bailly, and I believe we could get around £10 million for him. There are clubs around Europe that would love him, that could cater to his fitness needs, and could get a full season out of him. And going forward, playing most of the games a season. That's £10 million for Bailly. Phil Jones, Mr. Man United, he's been here possibly longer than anyone now, I believe. Him and De Gea, I believe, are the longest serving players. It's a shame the way things have gone for him. I was of the camp of he was going to be Man United and England captain. He should have been the player that Harry Maguire wants to be. He would fight, he would battle for everything. He could cover defensive midfield, right back, centre back. Ferguson even talked about him in the same ilk as Duncan Edwards, who could play all across the pitch, and should have been Man United and England captain. It hasn't worked out for Phil Jones. Why they signed him to the new contract when they did is unbeknown to me. Same reason, I suppose, as Eric Bailly signing his new contract. Was it last year or the year before? To protect assets. It's not the way that the club should be run. Hopefully those days are over now. Phil Jones, I do believe we could get around £5 million for him. He could go to a lower Premiership team, maybe even the Championship. I've talked about why not Blackburn to come back in for him. What a place. He wouldn't have to move house. It's a club, obviously he came through the academy, he could have another chance, and the experience that he could bring could be unbelievable. He could be the player that helps them get up into the Premiership. We saw last year when he came in against Wolves, he was the only player who could walk away with his head held high. He could still play for Man United. If he could put his problems behind him and Ten Hag get him on a fitness regime, he could play for us. I think it's unlikely because obviously we're bringing Martinez in. We have Maguire, who Ten Hag has said is his captain, so he is likely to play. We have Varane, who has been talked about as one of the best centre-backs in the world. He's going to play. Martinez is coming in. He's going to play. Lindelof is the 4th choice. And I've no doubt that he's going to play. Ten Hag, I believe, will drop players who aren't performing, whether they're the captain, whether they're World Cup, Champions League winning defenders. If they're not playing well, if they're not doing what he wants them to do, he will drop them. So it's a straight fight for 2 positions, possibly 3 if he plays 3 at the back. It's a straight fight for those positions between Lindelof, Maguire, Varane and Varane. What did I just say? Lindelof, Maguire, Varane and Varane? Lindelof, Maguire, Varane and Martinez. So Bailly is out the door, Jones is out the door. Even if we let Jones go on a free, the money would be saving in his wages, but I believe we could get £5 million for him. Brandon Williams, £12 million. He's a young English player. Norwich, other than his Instagram posts, Norwich loved him. He got quite high on their Player of the Year. Always talked about how he put his all in. He's a tough, fighting player. He could fill in at right back, left back. I believe there are a lot of teams in the Premiership. Maybe every team outside the top 10 in the Premiership could use him in their squad. So I believe he could get around about 12 million. He's a young player, still has potential. Telles, £10 million. He is a player around Europe that would do very well. He can be a bit of a liability defensively, but in the right team, he could do well. Look at him at Porto, even just for his set-piece delivery and his crossing. He's worth the money to a lot of European teams. And with Malacia coming in, playing understudy to Luke Shaw, I could see Telles on the way out. Same with Williams. Obviously, we've got 2 left backs right now. We've got 2 right backs. If one leaves, we're going to go for another right back. I think Williams' time is done. But out of these players that's going, he's the most likely that I think could stay and stake a claim to the squad. Ten Hag would probably love his versatility and the way that he plays. So maybe Williams could stay, but Tellez I think is gone. Tuanzebe, £8 million. Again, quite high potential, fitness issues, injury issues. He's had a tough time with his loans last year. Gerrard didn't fancy him at Villa. He went to Napoli. I think it was something like 10 minutes he got in Syria as a sub. It still would have been an experience to go out there to train with those players, to be alongside Koulibaly, for example, and learn from those players. But he didn't get the playtime we'd hoped for. Again, like Williams, he could come back and Ten Hag could see something in him. Ten Hag could want him as his fifth option at centre-back, especially if he's playing three at the back. Tuanzebe is a player, like Williams, coming through the youth academy. I would love to see stay and turn it around and do well and be a squad player or even a first-team player for United. He's a beast of a player. We've all seen his physique. We've all seen how he pocketed Mbappe a few years back. He could be a United player, but I don't see it happening. If we get a buyback clause in that kicks in 2 or 3 years, that would be very wise. But for £8 million, if we got that for Tuanzebe, I think that would be quite good money. We could get more. I mean, look at Pereira. There are reports saying 8 million plus 2 in bonuses. There's other reports saying 10 million plus 3 in bonuses. So in total, it's between 10 and 13 million pounds we've got for Pereira. Tuanzebe, I believe, could get more. But I've put him down as £8 million, and that is 45 million altogether for those players. And obviously the money we save in wages, probably around about 500k a week, which works out to 25 million a season. You know, some of these players have got 2-3 years left on their contracts, so that's 50-75 million. Don't get me wrong, the new players who come in will take up those wages, so it's not like we're saving all of that money. But you know, that is 45 million pounds. If we were to spend that 210 I talked about, that then goes down to, 165, which is about right for a manager coming in and a new manager, new signings. At United especially, 120 to 150 million pounds is kind of the norm. And then the big one is obviously Ronaldo. I know when the reports came out, I didn't think he would leave. I didn't think there was anywhere he could go. He's not going to go to Bayern. Bayern have come out straight away and said they're not interested. He's not going to replace Lewandowski. I'd be surprised if Bayern sell Lewandowski to Barcelona this year. I think he's going to go on a free next year. So Ronaldo's not going to go to Bayern. There's been talk of Barcelona if they can't get Lewandowski, but they're not going to get Ronaldo. They're not going to pay his wages, even if he's reported to take a wage drop just to play Champions League football. From what I've seen, people believe he wants to play in the Champions League just to score a few more goals and keep his record ahead of Messi, who isn't far behind him. To me, that's crazy to me. If he would want to leave Man United, don't get me wrong, it was a bad year last year, but he is loved at this club. He has a legacy. Fans would go to Old Trafford just because Ronaldo was back. Do you know what I mean? He was that star. And he can still do it this year. Despite what's happened in the summer, goals change minds. And if he comes in and scores the goals and plays well in the Ten Hag system, even if he's rotation, people will change and they'll forget all about this. But if he goes to Barcelona, not only does that ruin his reputation with us, it ruins his reputation with Real Madrid. The Messi fans, do you think they're going to take to Ronaldo? I'm not so sure. He's also going to be paid a hell of a lot less, which he shouldn't be playing for the money. He's already a multi-millionaire. He makes crazy amounts of money from social media and endorsements. But is he going to do that just to score 4, 5, 6 more goals in the Champions League for 1 year? I believe we'll be back in the Champions League the year after. And while his contract is only for 1 more year, depending on how he does under Ten Hag, if he takes us back to the Champions League, if we win the Europa and qualify, or get 4th place and qualify, could he be talked into staying? Could he, might he want to stay? And he's got to talk management into renewing for another year to give him one last Champions League campaign before he goes back to Sporting, which I believe he will. Who knows? But if Ronaldo was to leave, the only club I could see him going to is Chelsea, and I don't believe Tuchel wants him. I believe it would be a signing from the board, the new owner, and I've kind of swayed towards thinking maybe he could do it, maybe he could go. It's been reported that 15 million is how much it would cost, so that would take our outgoings to 60 million, and would take our wages saved from around about 500k to around about 850k per week, which 800k is 40 million a year. So if Ronaldo does leave, then I can definitely see us signing at least a winger to support Martial and Rashford, who might play up front. There's been talks of Bruno as a false nine. I could see that too. Bruno false nine, and then Sancho and Rashford or Martial or Olanga on the wings, kind of as your typical inside forward wingers. Bruno will drop back to that number 10 when needed, and the two wingers will play kind of as split strikers. But I do believe if Ronaldo leaves, then we 100% have to sign either a winger or a striker, or possibly both. Now, if he does leave, that's where I come in with Cornet, Dembele, 40, 50, 60 million for the two players. I think we could do a lot worse. Now, the other options are, as I said, a bit more expensive. Obviously, there's Antony, which I don't think we'll go for. I think part of the Ajax agreement will be, we'll leave Antony until maybe next year. Diaby, a right wing from Leverkusen. He's being reported at 60 million. And I think it's just not worth it. He's a good player. I have seen a few Leverkusen games with his weaknesses as well as his strengths, not just YouTube reels showing his best bits. I think leave that for Newcastle. He's not a player that I would go for that price tag. Remember, we've got Ahmad, which was 36 million, Palestri, which was around 20 million. These are players that at least one of them I want to see getting minutes this year. And if we sign a superstar right winger, that's not going to happen. They're both going to go out on loan, and he's going to rotate with Sancho, who I believe will probably be best served on the left, but we will see him on the right this year, I'm sure. So Diaby I wouldn't go for. The other option up front would be £50 million, I believe, is Ivan Toney from Brentford, who I do like. He's a very hard-working forward, would fit well in the Ten Hag system, knows where the goal is, bullies defenders, great technique. But again, it's big money. And is he going to come in as the Ronaldo replacement if Ronaldo leaves? Is he going to deal well with the price tag, the big move to a big club? It's unknown. Whereas Dembele, it's less money. He's going to be a rotation with Martial. If Ronaldo leaves, I'm talking about. He's that couple of years older. He's played European competitions. He's played on the big stage. He has done it for big clubs. While it was only a loan at Atletico and it didn't work out, he's played in front of those fans. He's endured the tough times. So I would go for Dembele over Toney. But if Toney was available for the same money, and then I'd maybe sway towards Toney. I do like him. He's a good player. He has his off-the-field issues. Could that just be because he's at Brentford and he believes he's bigger than that? Which footballers kind of need. Footballers need that ego to believe they are the best and they can play for the best teams. Otherwise, they're never going to make it. It's mental toughness. Obviously, he said things he shouldn't have said, but could he come in and do it for United? I believe he possibly could, but he's more of an unknown quantity than I'd say Dembele, who I think would definitely do a job for us. Other options, my defensive midfield option would be my first choice actually if De Jong didn't go through. It's Ruben Neves from Wolves. He's got 2 years left on his contract, Premier League proven. I don't understand people who put him down and say he's not made for a big club. He 100% is. You watch any Wolves games, he's always in space. He has that Scholes-like skill of just always being in space, always being available, whether his team are in possession or the other team are in possession. He's always in space, and that means he's able to cut off avenues. He's always intercepting the ball or putting pressure or cutting off avenues for other players. So the simple pass isn't on. They have to try for a more difficult pass, and the defence sweeps up. The job he does at Wolves is unbelievable, and he could 100% do that for Man United. I think in a defensive sense, he is better, if not comparable, to De Jong. I think he does more defensively, and we've seen it in the Premiership. We don't know how De Jong is going to take to the Premiership. I think Neves has De Jong's number in terms of defence, strength, and doing it in the Premiership. De Jong obviously carrying the ball, picking the pass, higher potential. But Neves can pick a pass as well. He can hit 40, 50-yard balls like nobody else. I think he should be 100% second choice to De Jong if it falls through. The reason I put Sangar above him was he's going to be maybe 20, 30 million pounds, whereas Neves is going to be maybe 50, 60 million pounds. And that's why I said Neves should be first choice if De Jong falls through. But if we do sign another defensive midfielder alongside De Jong, then Neves is maybe too similar to him, whereas Sangar is a different type of player, so Sangar would be first choice. And as I talked about at right back, my other choice was Dumfries of Inter Milan, which is a toss-up between him and Aarons. Aarons has got that English Premiership, I wouldn't say proven, but he's got the experience, whereas Dumfries could come in and struggle. I am going to do another video, which I will link in the description, talking about our right back options, because in front of me I actually have maybe 6, 7 other players that could be right back options. But again, this is if we sell Dalot, who I believe we could get 15 million for, or Wan-Bissaka, who I believe we could get 20 million for. These other right back options are players to replace them. Some of them will cost around about the same money, some of them will cost maybe 35, 40 million. But obviously, if we are replacing right back, we want to upgrade. That's the point, so we will be spending a little bit more money. And as I say, the 4 positions, 4 players that I spoke about, I can't see us signing all 4. I can't see us signing those 4 players. So chances are our incomings will be the ones we know about, Martinez and De Jong for around about 90, 100 million. Then some players going out, and then 2 or 3 players coming in maybe for 20, 40 million. I also wanted to talk about, obviously, wages out maybe isn't the most important because we're going to replace those wages. Obviously, if Ronaldo leaves, we're not going to sign someone on the same wages as him, so it is money saved. Some of these players that leave, if we sell Bailly, Jones and Axel, then their wages alone will equate to 250, 300,000 pounds a week. And Martinez is going to come in on what, 80, 90 grand a week. So we're saving around about 200 grand a week. So not every player that leaves has to be replaced. If we sell a right back, they have to be replaced. If we sell Ronaldo, he has to be replaced. But all the others are players that can go and don't need replacing. On top of that, there's the wages we've saved of Mata, Matic, Pogba, Lingard. These players altogether are worked out probably around about 800 grand a week to £1 million a week. There was some big wages there. Apparently Mata was on 220, I believe it was. Pogba, if reports are believed, somewhere between 250 and 300. Lingard, 140. Mata, I think, was on 120. And the other players that have left, obviously. But these players, that's probably 30, 40, 50 million a year that we've saved money on from their wages. That can be spent elsewhere. As I said, I'm going to do another video on right back options. I'm also going to do a video on our central midfield options going forward. Not just possible signings, but more how could Ten Hag kind of line up, what's his midfield preference. And I want to do another video on specifically the whole team, how Ten Hag lines up. And there's going to be another video on forward options. If Ronaldo stays, if Ronaldo leaves, what our options are, how we might set up. I kind of touched on it with Bruno being the false nine. And just one more point I wanted to make before I leave is that a lot of these players that the fans want out or that think are done. I mean, there were reports that Pereira could be coming back and doing a job. Obviously, he's gone now. But the reports were that scouts in Brazil were saying the best player on the pitch is actually Pereira and he could do a job under Ten Hag. We need to kind of put this as a clean slate. I know some of the other YouTube channels say, what some of the players did last year, they down tools, they gave up, they shouldn't get another chance. I am of the opposite camp. I believe every single player could get a chance under Ten Hag and could do well. It's a new system. It's a manager that actually coaches. And that's nothing against Ranić, who I believe was just thrown to the dogs when he came in. He wasn't backed. Solskjaer, who people say he got by on good vibes, he didn't. He's an underrated coach. He did well with us. But he is not someone who strikes me as a coach with ideas, with tactics. Sometimes there was a game against Spurs where he did the split strikers and everyone tactically was like, this is great. But then he just kind of gave up on that a little bit. I think he played it safe. The whole McFred and Magaluf, as it was called, with Lindelof and Maguire. And the tactics with Bruno at 10 and hope that Bruno does something brilliant. Hope that Martial keeps his form up. Hope that Rashford carries us. As he did before his back injury. People forget how good Rashford was. I do believe that Ten Hag will come in with his system and his coaching and telling players to use their brain. We've seen him on the training pitch already. Players like Rashford, he's going to be trained on how to play. He's not going to be running into walls. He's not going to be running into 4 or 5 defenders and trying to take them on. The team is going to play in a better way so that Rashford will only come up against 1 or 2 defenders, which he can beat with a bit of skill. Or if there's a pass on, he will play it. If there's a cross on, he will cross the ball. So we are going to see a Rashford redemption, I've got no doubt. Martial, if his head's in the right place, if he's willing to work hard, there might be no competition for him if Ronaldo leaves and we don't sign anyone, if we sign a right winger. Or he could be back up to Ronaldo. He has had this loan that didn't work out at Seville. He could have seen the light. He could have gone there and thought maybe the grass isn't greener. He could come back and be a new player. I don't think there's any player, maybe Rashford, that I want to see come back and do well more than Martial. I'm a huge fan of his and what he did in 1920 with the goals he scored. Some of the goals were just outstanding goals. Some of them weren't. Some of them were just tap-ins, but that's the sign of a striker that signs all types of goals. I think Martial can come back and do it. I think Rashford can do it. I think Luke Shaw will see come back to form. He's got Malacia on his heels, who will come in and do a job and do well every time he plays. Maguire, we could see the Maguire of Leicester when he first came to United again. Varane, if he's put on a regime for his fitness and injuries. Even Lindelof. Ten Hag could look at Lindelof and the way he can carry the ball and the passes he can make and break in the lines and think this is a player for me. At right back, Wan-Bissaka could play the role that the Ajax fullback Mazraoui, who's just gone to Bayern, that he played. He wasn't a bombing forward right back. He was better going forward than Wan-Bissaka, but he kind of tucked in and would be alongside the centre backs at Ajax while the left fullback went forward, given another attacking option. We could see a similar thing with Wan-Bissaka. We could see that the left back, Shaw or Malacia, goes forward and Wan-Bissaka stays back with the 2 centre backs and De Jong just in front of them. So Wan-Bissaka could get redemption. Dalot, who I think did really well when he came in for Ranić. Defensively, he's never going to be great. He could be better with Ten Hag's coaching. He could do well. Sancho on the right wing, we could see the player that was at Dortmund. The whole team is going to play a different style of football, which means the players that didn't suit the style of football last year, Rashford, Sancho to a degree, Bruno, how he had to play second fiddle to Ronaldo. The whole team is going to play different, so Bruno will have more space. Bruno will be told to not make as many risky passes to weigh up the risk and reward. So all of these players that some of the fans want out or that they think don't have a place at United anymore, they could come back and surprise everyone. And that is the message I want to leave with you, that Ten Hag has a system. He has a way that he wants to play. It might not go well. We could have 6 months of struggling and being mid-table, and I'm all for it. That happened at Utrecht, that happened at Ajax. There were calls for him to leave, and then things started turning around. They could see the way he wanted his team to play. That's what we're going to get. The team is going to play a different kind of way. And players like Rashford, Martial, Wan-Bissaka, if he doesn't leave, Ronaldo even. Ronaldo could be told, look, just stay up front. You don't need the whole team to press. Ronaldo can just block off one centre-back to another. He's doing his job, blocking a lane, conserving energy. And the other forward players, Rashford, Martial, Sancho, Bruno, Elanga, Ahmad, they could be the players that do the pressing, while Ronaldo just cuts off an easy pass. And then as soon as we've got the ball, Ronaldo is in place for someone to pass to him, to cross to him, for him to shoot, to head, to score. So, I'm excited to see how the team plays, and that's what I want to leave with you watching the video, that we are going to play a different style of football. That the players, you shouldn't have your mind made up on players already. These players could come in and clean slate, do well, and then in 6 months' time, a year's time, these could be the players that everyone has on the back of their tops, because they love these players now. They love the way they play. So thank you for watching my first video. I hope you enjoyed it. Any opinions, any criticisms, hopefully constructive. But, if you want to tell me that I'm rubbish at this and I should give up, it's your opinion. And if you want to comment that, then feel free. Thank you for watching. I will be recording more videos straight away and linking in the description. And I will get onto Ten Hag's press conference, what he said, and I will be doing a look forward to the match that's happening not very long actually. So maybe I won't be doing a look forward to the match that's happening. I'll actually be watching that. It's maybe a little bit too early to do a watch along. I had some technical issues, but I will be watching the match, and perhaps my next video I'll put out will be thoughts on the match. Thanks again for watching. I'm eternally grateful, and hopefully this is the first of many, many videos. And if you're along for the start of the ride, I hope you're there for the duration. Thank you very much. Goodbye.